Hi, this is John Grant with the REI Policy Institute. The REI Policy Institute is funded by Randy Patrick, an investor in Tampa, Florida. Primarily what we do is lobby on distressed property matters, both at the federal level, and we're going to start looking at the state level as well, primarily the Southeast. The Institute also provides information on market trends, what institutions are doing, things like that. You can learn more about what we're doing by going to reipolicy.com. When you get to that site, you can sign up for our Facebook page. You can subscribe to this YouTube channel, which would be a big help to me. This is a good way to sort of communicate with folks in between newsletters. And then finally, you can subscribe to the newsletter. In that newsletter, you get a lot of great stuff every month, updates on market trends, updates on my lobbying work, things like that. All information designed to give investors the information that they need in order to plan their business models for the future. This week, I want to talk about briefly my lobbying work, and specifically the Mortgage Forgiveness Debt Relief Act. This was first passed in 2007, and essentially what it does, it allows distressed homeowners who utilize a short sale, it shields them from being penalized by the IRS for what some people call phantom income, but essentially for being taxed on forgiven income. I think it's been a nice boost to the short sale industry, and that, along with some other things that I've worked on, the National Standard Short Sale Program, valuation methodology, streamlining the short sale process, things like that. We tried to revive that industry a bit. Since 2007, normally how renewal of this tax break has been handled has been through what are known as the tax extenders package. Those are handled every year or every 2 years, and it's part of a very large group of legislation that usually toward the end of the year Congress just passes the extensions. It usually comes down to the wire every year. There have been some cases where Congress didn't get it done and things have lapsed for a year, but they've been made retroactive. Last year I worked on this, and we were able to get a 2-year deal, making it retroactive for the previous year that was not covered, and then covering all of this year. But it expires at the end of this year. So what we're trying to do is give folks an update on where the lobbying effort is on that front, because I think it's important to the distressed property industry, and it's something that Randy has his eye on as well. You'll see in sort of previous updates I've done on YouTube, I've been kind of skeptical about whether or not Congress would get the tax extenders package done. Last year there were a number of pretty big extenders that were made permanent, and in doing so it reduced the urgency of getting this done. I think that probably significantly lowered the chances of Congress making this a priority heading into this year, especially considering it's an election year. Now, all is not lost on that. In my meetings on the Hill, one of the things that was discussed is if the extension is not done this year, it would be brought up in terms of whether or not it should be made permanent. 2017 should be an interesting year for tax reform. It's when Congress hopefully will start getting serious about it, and you should see a pretty big fight on Capitol Hill in terms of trying to get legitimate tax reform done. But the latest calls that I've made on Capitol Hill and conversations I've had, I want to revise it a little bit. I think I went from thinking there was about a 20% chance of getting this done at the end of the year. Now I think it's more of a coin toss. I think the question is what changed, And, I think it's generally, there's an agreement that that when this would happen, it would be post-election in what's known as the lame duck session. And at that time, I wouldn't say you have members of Congress who certainly don't care about what's being passed, but you'll have some members there who won't be there anymore. This is something that has been passed routinely since 2007. And, I think that based upon the discussion that I've had, or discussions, that, Congress will make time to try to get this done. Now, whether or not it gets done or not, like I said, is still up in the air. There's a lot less certainty. Heading in, last year, I would guess it was around June or July that I figured we had the votes to get the 2-year extension done. We had come out with an editorial that I ghost wrote for a client that was published. I then distributed the editorial in support of the Mortgage Forgiveness Debt Relief Act to all congressional offices, made a lot of calls, and we saw a significant boost in support for in co-sponsors joining a measure that would make it a 2-year extension. It was a very good strategy, not just because I came up with it, but because we did that work before the realtors came up. And, they are extraordinarily powerful and effective lobby on the Hill, and we knew that would be on their agenda as well. So we had already kind of set the table, added, I think, close to 40 to 60 co-sponsors to the bill. I'm not sure, even before they got up there. And then once they got up there, and I'm sure they discussed it as well, I think that put it over the top. So we kind of knew we had it. This year the dynamic is different, again, being an election year and being that the tax extenders package is a very different bill now. And ironically, you see a lot of businesses that used to talk about how important the tax extenders package was. Now that some of them have been appeased and got their part of it made permanent, they're not just standing on the sidelines. You had the Koch Institute come out and talk about how, this was corporate welfare and all this stuff. And, I understand for folks not familiar with Washington, they get very frustrated with it, think nothing gets done. And I would disagree with that to a large degree because we've seen things can get done. But I absolutely agree with the hypocrisy that goes on. The absurdity of these people who benefited from this extension for years, who then, once their stuff gets done, they don't merely sit on the sidelines. Now it's this righteousness that, oh, this is such a horrible thing. Well, look, if you examine the specifics of what we're doing, we are shielding distressed borrowers from taxation not on income, but on forgiven debt. And there's a huge difference there, okay? So if you're a Republican, probably don't like taxes that much, I would assume. And traditionally, if you're a Democrat, you want to see distressed borrowers be protected, So I don't see how this fits into corporate welfare and these other idiotic arguments that are being made by groups that it's these think tanks in Washington. They're basically people who can't actually work in the private sector because no one will hire them. So some weirdo billionaire hires them, and now that's what they do for a living. They write articles. But I think we got a good case for our legislation. Hopefully we'll get it done. I'm going to work diligently on that. Obviously, hopefully we'll get some help from some larger groups, specifically the realtors. And then, we'll see what happens. But, worst case scenario, the fight continues into 2017 and we try to make it permanent. So no one's going to wave the white flag here if for whatever reason we can't get this done. But I wanted to let everyone know that there is a better chance this will get done at the end of the year. So I want to thank everybody. Again, reipolicy.com. It is a big help if you can share that site with people and get them to support the newsletter. And it's $99 a year, which isn't that much. And, Randy has been great in terms of funding this thing. And then once we sort of move beyond this Mortgage Forgiveness Debt Relief Act, there's a lot of other things that we can hit and work on that will help people who buy, sell, and rent properties for a living. So it's a good effort. We've had a very good track record of success, and we expect that to continue. So thanks a lot, and I'll have another update next week. Thanks.